Are your guitars consistently coming out dull or muddy sounding? Well, never fear. Today I'm going to show you how to fix your muddy tone and get huge guitar mixes. I'm going to start by playing you the raw guitars here by themselves, no plugins or anything, so you can hear our starting point, and then I'll kick in the whole plugin chain. You can hear where we end up with these guitars after our plugins are in. So here's our before, and then I'll kick our plugins in. You can hear our after. So you can hear our guitars have some bigness to start, but it's a lot of excess sub area. They feel kind of scooped sounding. They don't have any brightness or life to them, and they just feel boomy or muddy when we stick them inside the track here. So I'm going to take off all the plugins here, and we're going to go through our plugin chain, and I'm going to show you how we're adding life, brightness, and overall energy to these guitars to get them sounding huge inside this track. Our first EQ here, let me take off all of our moves. We're going to start by focusing in on the high pass filter and the low pass filter. This is one of the first moves I'm always making on especially rhythm guitars, is pulling in the high pass and pulling in the low pass to focus in the frequency range on the heart of this sound. Our rhythm guitars are really sitting between about 200 hertz and about 5 or 6K here. Anything below 200 is all that excess sub area that's just going to fight with the bass guitar and the kick drum, and anything above about 6 or 7K is all that super top end that's just going to come out harsh, and it's going to conflict with the top end on our vocals. So take a listen here. I'll bypass this EQ. You can hear our guitars without these two filters, and then I'll kick it in. Take a listen to how it focuses the frequency range on our rhythm guitars. You really notice it with the high pass filter. When I bypass the EQ, it feels like a whole nother octave comes in below about 200 hertz on our guitars, but it's nothing consistent, and it's not adding energy to our guitars so much as it's adding mud and this kind of bottom end weight that's just going to fight with our bass guitar. It's not consistent. It comes in on some notes and then it disappears on others. So it's not part of the heart of this sound. We want to focus in on what's going to add energy here in our track, and that's 200 hertz to about 6-7K here. Now, before we add our two boosts, I want to get some compression in place here. And I really love using this Everest C100A compressor. For me, it's just like adding some concrete to our guitar tone. It doesn't change the volume too much, and it doesn't change the actual frequency range and tone of our guitar too much. It just kind of holds it in place, and that's what I love so much about this plugin. Medium attack here, so we're not attacking any transients or anything because there's not big peaks or transients on these guitars. If we zoom out, they're pretty consistent sounding already. They're distorted, so they have an element of compression in them and an element of evenness. So it's not so much shooting for trying to even out these guitars. It's just starting to hold them in place here. So medium attack, fast release here. We're only going to do about 3 dB of reduction. So here's without, and then I'll kick this compressor in. Listen to how it just holds these guitars in place. You can hear it's subtle. It's not drastically changing anything about the volume or the tone of our guitars. It's just an element to hold all the moves we're going to make, these two boosts on our EQ, in place as we move further down the line here. So going back to our first EQ now, I'm going to add two moves here. We've got a mid-range boost and we've got a top-end boost here. We're going to add the top-end boost first. It's just about 2.5 dB, at 5K. And this is where the low pass filter becomes so important on this EQ. If I take this off just visually, when I add in this boost at about 5K, you can see it reaches all the way up to about 8, 9, almost 10K here. But if I add back in the low pass filter, suddenly this boost is cut off by about 7 or 8K here. So we have two whole other thousands of hertz here that aren't accounted for now. So we're not adding top end harshness anymore, just adding the brightness we want on these electrics. So take a listen without this boost and then with it. It's only 2.5 dB. It's a small boost, but it adds so much life and so much energy to the top end of our guitars. It really wakes up the tone of these rhythm guitars so they don't feel dull and they aren't feeling flat against the rest of the track. Now, this move here in the mid-range, this 5 dB boost at about 1.5K is so important for making our guitars feel huge inside the track. Without this, our guitars are going to feel scooped and they're just going to have some bottom end and some top end, but they're not going to compete against the rest of the mid-range information. Our acoustics, our keys, our vocals, they're just going to feel flat here against the rest of the track. So take a listen here without this boost and then with it. 5 dB at about 1.5K here. It's such a crucial move on our EQ here because it makes our guitars feel full range. They don't just have bottom end and top end, they have mid range that's going to help these guitars be competitive and cut through in this mix. Now, after our compressor here, I do have a multiband, and for me, this gives me an extra level of control. We've done 2 top end boosts. One's pretty big here in the mid range, so I want to control those so they never get out of hand and get harsh or prickly for the listener. So I've got this multiband, and we're looking at 1K and above here. 20-to-1 ratio, fast attack, fast release. I'm also using the output gain here to get a little bit more control on the fader, so I don't have to pull the fader down so far. I like having the half dB moves here, so just pulling up 3 dB on the gain overall here. But on this top end here, I'll start with it bypassed and then I'll kick it in. Listen to as he moves around to different chords, it holds our top end in place. Sometimes this feels really transparent, but when he slides to certain chords, if he digs in harder or if he slides up to a higher chord, sometimes that top end jumps out a little bit too much for me and it gets harsh or edgy for my ears. So having this little bit of control, it's only about 3 dB a reduction here on the frequency range 1K and above, but it just holds those 2 boosts in place. So we get the brightness and the energy from the top end without it ever becoming edgy or harsh. Now, the last move we're doing here on this final EQ at the very end of the chain is we're adding the bottom end weight to get these guitars some bigness as we stick them back in the track. So we're at about 150 hertz here doing a 5 dB boost. Take a listen without this and then with it. Listen to how it affects the entire frequency range, not just the bottom end. Now you're probably wondering, why am I boosting below where the high pass was set on our first EQ? Because we want to clean up that bottom end area and control the sub area before we boost. If we were to just leave this in on the front end, it would be inconsistent and the bottom end would kind of move up and down. By controlling it and then compressing against that, we get a super consistent guitar tone. And then when we boost bottom end at the end of the chain, we bring up a bottom end that is super, super consistent and stays no matter where he's sliding and no matter what chord he's hitting on the guitar on the neck here. So let's take a listen one more time overall without these plugins in, and then I'll kick them back in. You can hear our before and our after, and I'll throw it back inside the entire track here as well. Fixing a dull or muddy tone and getting our guitars sounding big inside the mix here. Our first EQ, we're controlling the frequency range, honing in on the heart of this sound with our high pass and our low pass, adding a touch of top end brightness here to give our guitars some life, and then a ton of mid range so they feel full frequency range. And then our compressor here, just doing about 3 dB. Remember, just holding that guitar in place here, nothing too crazy. The multiband is another level of control, but specifically on the top end. So nothing ever gets harsh. We keep our guitars bright, but they're never edgy for our listener. And last but not least here, after everything, at the end of the chain, we're boosting bottom end so our guitars feel consistently powerful and huge inside this track. I hope that was helpful for you. If you are looking to go deeper into the mixing process in its entirety and you really want to start to hone your workflow as an audio engineer, then I have just the tool for you, and it is completely free. It is my 7-step mixing checklist, and it's just a simple PDF guide that will walk you through the entire mixing process step by step to help you get professional and radio-ready mixes without any more of the guesswork. Completely free for you to download, and you can get access to that by clicking the link below in the video description. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.